Hi everyone, Pastor Bill Marsh here. I'm doing a series on the book of Revelation. Revelation, is not about death. It's about life. It's about eternity forever. And I pray that you will enjoy what you hear, and I pray that you'll be able to apply it to your life. May God have blessings on your soul. Hi everyone, Pastor Bill Marshall, Future Revealed. We're on episode 29, chapter 9 of Revelation, 7 through 11. And the shapes of locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. And on their heads were as it were crowns like gold. And their faces were as the faces of men. Verse 8. And they had hair as the hair of a woman, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. Verse 9. They had breastplates as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. Verse 10. And they had the tails like unto scorpions, and there were stingers in their tails, and the power was to hurt men for 5 months. The shapes of these creatures were like unto horses prepared unto battle. They were not horses, but were like unto horses. That is, they were swift. On their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold. That is, they did not work with power. They did their work with power, and they were very successful. And their faces were as the faces of men. That is, they were intelligent. They obeyed commands and orders, and they discerned between those who had the seal of God and those who did not. They had hair as the hair of a woman. That is, they were given destructive strength. They had breastplates, as it were, of iron. That is, they were difficult to confront. The sound of their wings was the sound of chariots of many horses running battle. That is, they were bold in their challenge to the entire social, moral, government, religious, and ecclesiastical world. They had tails like unto scorpions. We are to meet that reference again in the description under the sixth trumpet. In Isaiah 9:15, the prophet said, a false prophet, a lying prophet, a misleading teacher is a tail. The intensity of this horrible plague of scorpion attack lasted 5 months. 2 things. 1, notice that the dissolution of moral, social life of the world happens under the permissive will of Almighty God. Sometimes one is tempted to think that since evil is so rampant, false doctrine so dark, the apostasy of these who think, those who led astray in their teachings is so powerful, surely God is dead or cannot cope with a corrupting situation. God's gospel must have lost its power, its virility. Surely the Lord must have turned his back and he does not know, or if he does, he doesn't care. But God said something. God said 5 months. There is a stated limitation. Another limitation God said is this: you are not to kill, you can only torment, but you cannot kill. The second, when people persist in iniquity, when people choose to be vile and blasphemous, God lets their iniquity run its course. God lets it develop. God lets it continue. If man chooses the administration of Satan, God lets that man experience what is to be a servant of the devil. This is what has happened here in the book of Revelation. The spirit of iniquity works, and it continues and goes on, and finally it ends in indescribable torment, hurt, agony, and pain. This is what we find under the fifth trumpet, nothing other than an outward working evil when men choose to be servants of Satan. Tormenting judgments inevitably come and inevitably follow. Verse 11. They had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon. But the Greek tongue, his name is Apollyon. The Greek Apollyon means the destroyer, a word that certainly describes Satan. May God have blessings upon your soul.